Good morning and evening, everyone. A very warm welcome and thank you for joining us today. So, we are here to discuss a topic that gathers a complete update on the PFAS globally, and we will be providing you with the most current insights and actionable information. Before we dive into today's session, a few quick housekeeping items to ensure a smooth experience to everyone. So, to minimize the background noise, all attendees, aside from our speaker, is muted. However, we absolutely encourage your engagement through the chat function. So, this session is being recorded and we will be shared with you post webinar if you opt for it. And your feedback is invaluable. At the end of the webinar, we will have a brief survey. So, your insights will help us refine the improve and our future sessions. Please feel free to submit any questions or comments via the chat. We will address as many as possible during the Q&A. So, and any remaining questions will be followed upon directly. So, with that, let's proceed. So, a quick go through on API engineering. So, we operate through 4 key divisions: compliance, ensuring you meet all regulatory requirements; engineering, providing innovative designs and solutions; and sourcing, offering access to quality materials and products; and cataloging, streamlining your data and information management. So here about API engineering's deep expertise in chemical compliance. As you could see, we are backed up by a team of 100 plus dedicated compliance engineers with a wealth of experience in material science and chemical engineering. So ensuring we understand the intricacies of your compliance needs. And we are proud to inform you that we are providing compliance solutions to 12 major OEMs and more than 150 tier suppliers, demonstrating our broad impact and trusted reputations. Next slide. And it's my pleasure to introduce our expert speakers, Jhansi and Madhura. Jhansi is our senior regulatory expert who is having a decade of experience in various regulations across the globe. And Madhura is also one of our regulatory experts specialized in PFAS and other regulations. So it's over to Madhura. Madhura, you are self-muted.
Hi. Yeah, hi all. So I'm Madhur. I work as a regulatory compliance expert at TAPA Engineering, and I will be taking you through today's sessions. So thank you all for joining today's webinar on PFAS substances. In today's webinar, we are going to cover what are the PFAS and what are the major industry sectors, what are the concerns of PFAS, why PFAS compliance matter, and how are PFAS regulated globally, and PFAS compliance roadmap, importantly, global regulatory updates from 2024 to 2032, and conclusion, finally, Q&A session also will be there. All right, let's pause for a moment and do a quick poll, and it will be take only 30 seconds. Once it is completed, we will continue the topic. Thank you once again. And now we'll move on to the topic, what are the PFAS? So PFAS has become a big topic now just because of new rules and regulations, but also PFAS, it can be seriously harm the environment and people's health as well. So PFAS stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. These are man-made chemicals, and there are over 12,000 different types. They have been used in factories and everyday products since 1940s as well. The thing about PFAS is that they don't break down easily. Even sunlight, water, heat, and even bacteria can't break them down like other chemicals. So when PFAS gets into the environment through different sources, they stay there for a longer time. They can build up in the soil, water, and even in our bodies for a years. PFAS are super resistant to heat, water, and oil. That's why they have been used in things like non-stick pans, stain-proof cloths, food wrappers, firefighting foams, and lot of industrial stuffs. But at the same time, same toughness is also a problem because they don't break down. PFAS can keep building in the environment and in people and animals too. That's why they're often called forever chemicals. Once they are out, they are hard to get rid of. Next, we will move on to the topic what are the major industry sectors. First one is aerospace and defense sector. So these sectors often deal with the extreme conditions like high heat, pressure, and exposure to fuels or chemicals. PFAS are used because they can withstand all of that without breaking down. We may find PFAS in fuel system, hydraulic system, seals, gasket, cable insulation, wiring, and coatings. One of the most talked about uses is in firefighting foams. Unfortunately, this is also one of the main sources of PFAS contamination in soil and water. And the next industry sector is automotive. So usually cars go through a lot of heat, friction, fluids, and constant movement. So PFAS are used in parts that need to last under these tough conditions. For example, PFAS are used in gaskets, seals, O-rings, brake systems, fuel systems, and hoses. These parts need to resist oil, fuel, and heat. Even things like paint finishes or water resistant fabric in car interiors might involve PFAS, especially in high end vehicles. And another industry sector is electronics and semiconductors. So this industry is another big user of PFAS. PFAS are used in semiconductor manufacturing, especially in things like etching, cleaning, and photolithography processes. This process need chemicals that are super stable. So you will also find PFAS in insulation materials for wires and circuit boards because they help protect delicate parts from heat and chemical damage. So additionally, in things like smartphones, laptops, and other electronic devices, PFAS-based coatings are used to make them more water and stain resistant. And next, another industry sector is medical devices. In the medical field, PFAS are often used because they are chemically stable, heat resistant, and non-reactive. So we can find PFAS in things like catheters, tubing, surgical instruments, protective clothing, gloves, and packaging, also in medical pumps. And another industry sector is textiles. PFAS are commonly used to make fabric resistant to water, stains, and oil. These chemicals are added as a coating or treatment during manufacturing. We can see PFAS used in outdoor gear like hiking cloths, tents, and boots. Even home textile like carpet, curtains, tablecloths, and furniture fabrics often use PFAS for stain resistance. And another industry sector is food packaging. PFAS are often used to make packaging resistant to grease, oil, and moisturizer. So things like burger wrappers, pizza boxes, microwave popcorn bags, and takeout containers. So if they don't get greasy, they might contain PFAS. The concern is that PFAS can sometimes migrate from the packaging into the food, especially when the food is not hot or greasy. And another industry sector is construction. In construction, materials need to be durable, weather resistant, and long lasting. And PFAS help them meet those needs. PFAS are used in generally sealants, paints, coatings, insulation materials, wires, cables, and flooring and adhesives also. So basically, PFAS help make buildings stronger, more energy efficient, and more resistant to harsh conditions. And next industry sector is oil and gas. This industry operates in extreme environments like high heat, pressure, and constant exposure to chemicals. PFAS are ideal here because they are highly durable and resistant to corrosion, oil, and heat. PFAS are commonly used in gaskets, seal, O-rings, and wall components. Chemical resistant coatings, also in the linings for storage tanks, especially in pipelines and drilling equipment. Some firefighting foams used in oil and gas facility also contain PFAS. Next industry sector is household product. PFAS are used in many common items around the house because they help make the things non-sticky, water resistant also. One of the most well-known example are non-stick cookware like Teflon pans, waterproof clothing and gear like jackets, shoes and bags, especially items made for rain and outdoor use. And next, last one, but not the least one, cosmetics and personal care products. PFAS are sometimes added to makeup or personal care items to make them last longer, feel smoother, or resist water and oil. Examples are like mascara, eyeliner, foundations, powders, and concealers. So next, we will move on to the topic, what are the concerns of PFAS? Let's now talk about the main concerns around PFAS and why everyone is paying so much attention to them. First, PFAS are often called forever chemicals, as I said, and that's because they don't break down easily in the environment. Once they are released, they can stay in the soil, water, and even in our bodies for a very long time. Another concern is like how widespread PFAS are. They have been found in drinking water, even in remote areas like Arctic, which are hard and expensive to clean as well. That means almost all of us have been exposed in some way or in another way. And it's not just about people. PFAS are harmful to wildlife and ecosystem too. So PFAS can enter the environment in many different ways, and most of it start from how they are used or made. When factories make you or use PFAS chemicals, they can release them into the air, water, or soil, either directly or through waste. PFAS are used in lot of household products, as I said, and even landfills are a source. The tricky part is once PFAS are in the environment, they don't go away easily. They can travel far and build up over time and get into our drinking water, food, and even the air. So next topic is about why PFAS complaints matters. So let's talk about why PFAS complaints matter. The first point is increasing global regulations. Right now, PFAS complaints has become major priority globally. Countries are moving quickly to tighten the rules and limit how these chemicals are used. In the European Union, there is a big proposal to restrict thousands of PFAS substances. On the top of that, many EU countries are already setting strict limits on how much PFAS can be in drinking water, food, and even everyday products. In the United States, the EPA recently made big move by setting the first ever national standards for PFAS in drinking water. They have also labeled some PFAS as hazardous substances, which means cleanup and reporting requirements under the Superfund law now apply. And next is PFAS use restrictions, bans, reporting requirements. We are seeing a clear pattern in how government are labeling PFAS and it's getting stricter over time. It usually starts with use restrictions. That means regulators first limit PFAS in very specific and high risk areas like firefighting foams, food packaging or waterproof clothing. But now things are moving further. In places like EU and some US states, we are seeing full bans on entire groups of PFAS, especially for the things that are considered non-essential or there are safer alternatives. At the same time, government are also pushing for more transparency. They are also asking companies to report the PFAS content in their products and emissions. And another thing is like customer and supply chain pressure. It's not just government pushing for PFAS complaints. Customers and supply chain partners are also now playing a big role. Many big brands, especially in industries like consumer goods, electronics, and automotive, have started setting their own targets to become PFAS free. And they're not just applying those standards to themselves, they're asking their suppliers to do the same. And next reason is like reputational risk and legal liability. Another big concern for companies today is the reputational legal risk tied to the PFAS. People are more informed about the health and environmental risk actually, and they are paying close attention to the brands they support. That means if the company is linked to PFAS pollution, even indirectly, it could face serious damage to its reputation as well. On the top of that, there is a legal side also. And next reason is protect human health and environment. At the end of the day, the most important reason for all of this focus is on PFAS is simple. It's about protecting people and the planet. Exposure to certain PFAS has been linked to some serious health problems, things like cancer, liver, kidney damage, weakened immune system, reproductive issues, and more. So next we will move on to the topic PFAS compliance roadmap. So let's start with the first and most important step in any PFAS compliance journey, and that's understanding the regulatory landscape. In simple terms, this means knowing what rule apply, where and when. PFAS regulations are evolving fast and they vary from one country to another. For example, EU is working on proposal to ban thousands of PFAS substances. In the US, the EPA has already set drinking water limits and is labeling some of the PFAS as hazardous. And globally, countries like Canada, Japan, and Australia are also introducing new PFAS rules. So as a company, it is critical to stay informed which regulations apply to your products, which regions are tightening controls, are there deadlines you need to prepare for. So by understanding the landscape early, you can plan ahead. The second point is conduct PFAS inventory. So once we understand the regulations, the next step is to conduct PFAS inventory. This basically means figuring out where are PFAS used in your business. We are not just talking about the final product. We have to look at all materials, components, chemicals, and even manufacturing processes. We need to start by asking, are PFAS used in raw materials? Do any suppliers provide PFAS containing parts? Are PFAS used in coatings, like general parts? These are the major parts. So this step might take a bit of digging, especially across complex supply chains, but it is absolutely essential. And the next step is engaging suppliers. Once you're done with your own PFAS inventory, the next important step is to engage with the suppliers. You can start by reaching out and asking suppliers, do any of their products contain PFAS? Can they provide full chemical disclosures? Are they able to offer PFAS-free alternatives or certifications like that? It is also a good idea to build PFAS requirements into your sourcing and procurement process also. Next step is risk assessment and phase out strategy. So now you know where PFAS are in your products and supply chain. The next step is to assess the risk and make a plan to phase them out. So which involves which PFAS containing products or materials are the most high risk, and are they used in critical application or in places with tight regulation like that. So once you identify the priorities, the next step is to building your phase out strategy that include finding PFAS free alternatives, working with R&D to redesign the product, or phasing out certain suppliers if they can't meet the requirement. Next step is documentation reporting. So once you start phasing out PFAS, it is super important to document everything. It is not just you are reducing the PFAS, but that you actually know where they are and what actions you have taken and what remains. So it involves like full chemical disclosures and PFAS-free certifications and all. Next to last step is like continuous monitoring. PFAS compliance is not a one-time project. Regulations are changing, science is evolving, and new PFAS compounds are being identified all the time. So companies need to stay alert and keep monitoring what's happening. This means regularly reviewing new regulations and updating your PFAS inventory when you add new products or supplies, and checking in with your supply chain to make sure they're still on the track with PFAS requirement. Next, we'll move on to the compliance roadmap. So it's about like I have covered from Q3 of 2025. As of Q3 of 2025, the first major milestone, that is regulatory assessment, will be completed. That means company now has the clear understanding of PFAS laws and restrictions that apply across different regions. In Q3 and Q4 of 2025, the focus shift to PFAS inventory. That means identifying where PFAS are being used to products and materials. So then in Q4 of 2025, we have to begin actively engaging with the supplier, though the details I have already explained. And in the Q1 of 2026, we have to carry out a detailed risk assessment and begin building a phase out strategy also. And documentation and reporting starts in early 2026 and continue as a routine process. By the end of Q2 2026, we move into continuous monitoring, keeping up with all regulatory updates, supply changes, or new risks that might come up. So this is the general timeline for PFAS compliance. Again, it depends on the region and country law. So it will be clearly explained by Jansi in coming slides. So now once again, it's a time for quick poll. After the poll is completed, Jansi will take over and lead the rest of the webinar.
Yeah. Thank you, Mathura, for your insightful contribution regarding the PFAS regulation. So, hi, everyone. So, this is Jansi Rani, working as a senior regulatory complaints expert at APA. Just before we jump in, I would like to mention that all the abbreviations used in the presentation are listed on the slide at the end. So I will now take it forward by presenting the global regulatory updates on PFAS for the period of 2024 to 2032. So this slide provides a global snapshot of PFAS regulatory activity across three major regions. So here you can find the European region, Asian region, and the United States. So let's go one by one. PFAS across the EU region. So this map actually provides a visual overview of how different European Union countries are chosen to enact stricter measures to regulate the sum of PFAS 4. So PFAS 4, which includes PFOA, PFOS, PFNA, and PFHXS. So those are actually closer to those in US region. So here you can find the teal color. So Denmark, which is 2 ppt, 2 parts per trillion, Sweden 4 ppt, and Germany 20 ppt by 2028. And the UK has a 100 ppt limit but extends the restriction to 47 different types of PFAS. So let's move on to the Asian region. So this map highlights how the key countries across the Asia like Japan, Korea, and Australia are advancing the restrictions and research on PFAS substances actively. And China and Taiwan are ramping up the surveillance, while Southeast Asian countries are beginning to establish the framework. So we can find the differentiation like the blue color. So which the countries which are actively monitoring the restriction or regulating the PFAS, and the gray color, which limited or no formal PFAS regulatory framework yet. So I'll just move on to the PFAS across the US region. So no, Madhura, the first slide. Yeah. So the states, this actually highlighted in the dark blue, are those that are actively regulating PFAS either through legislation, water standards, product bans, or reporting requirement. So as you can see, majority of the states have taken an independent action, particularly in areas like drinking water limits, firefighting foam restriction, and consumer product bans. And the gray color, which states that where there are no formal PFAS regulation reported yet. So although like some few are still like conducting investigation or proposing the rules. Next slide. So US and its member states PFAS regulation and complaints deadline. So here you can find two images. So the first one, this graphic distinguishes the federal oversight from state level action on PFAS management in the US. So at the federal level, major statutes like TASCA, CERCLA, STWA, and RCRA, so they form the backbone of PFAS regulation. Meanwhile, over 50% of US states are independently enacting the policies, signaling a very strong momentum despite the regulatory fragmentation. So moving on to the next image. So these are the four major environmental laws which are shaping the PFAS oversight in the US. So the first being TASCA. So TASCA, it mandates the reporting, testing, and restricts the new uses of PFAS. And CERCLA, which empowers the PFAS cleanup by labeling key compounds as hazardous substances. SDWA, which enforces the PFAS limits in drinking water. And RCRA is actually an evolving framework where the PFAS waste may soon be listed as a hazardous under this act. Next. So next we will move on to the US federal PFAS regulation timelines. So here this timeline actually highlights the 7 key federal regulatory actions targeting the PFAS with the rolling deadlines into 2026. So first let's see SNUR. So SNUR is a significant new use rule which mandates yearly notification before processing 329 inactive PFAS, which is effective from 2024, and it applies to all the manufacturers and processes. So coming to FDA's phase out. So here we can find three phase out which is implemented by FDA's. So first one is grease proofing phase out. So it actually ensures a replacement of grease resistant substances effective from February 2024. And in November 2024, the FDA issued a RFI focused on PFAS in seafood. So this marks a significant steps in understanding and mitigating the chemical exposure through diet. So the next one is a chemical review reform. So chemical manufacturers, they face a very stricter reviews under TASCA reform. So particularly for persistent bioaccumulative and toxic PFAS. And EPA eliminated the exemptions for low volume PFAS and PBT chemicals, which is effective from 2024. And next is TASCA section 8A7. So the US EPA finalized a rule requiring all the manufacturers and importers of PFAS, including those of the article manufacturers, to report the detailed data on PFAS uses, volumes, exposures, and disposal. So reporting date is due by July 2025 for small manufacturers and Jan 11, 2026 for everyone. Which includes the formulators, importers, and also the packaging and even the waste handlers. So here you can find the FDA, like by January 2025, the FDA will prohibit the use of 35 PFAS-based food contact substances, which impacts the food packaging and handling sectors. So, so here we can find the TRA notification and TRA reporting. So by March 2025, suppliers must disclose PFAS presence in products under the TRA notification rule, which drives the downstream awareness. And by July 2026, TRA reporting facilities must account for 205 PFAS substances in their environmental releases, which marking expanded reporting obligations. Next slide, please. So this slide explains the PFAS product bans across the US state from 2024 to 2032. So first, let's see the Californian ban. So it begins enforcement with the cookware disclosures and expands to textiles and cosmetics with the menstrual products regulated from 2028. And this timeline illustrates the Californians' progressive PFAS restrictions across the consumer products. So in the right image, which shows the legislative actions taken in California to ban the PFAS, which is starting in 2025. PFAS is banned in textile articles, followed by menstrual products in 2027 with a tighter threshold. And by 2027, the manufacturers must register the covered products under Assembly Bill 347 with the enforcement beginning in 2030. So the next one we can see Colorado ban. So here it implements the broader product coverage earlier 2024 with clear deadlines for labeling, uh, uh, restrictions and expanded categories like artificial turf, sky wax, dental floss by 2029. Next slide. So this timeline compares the state level PFAS product bans across the Maine and Minnesota spanning 2024 to 2032. So Maine's actually it begins its phased ban in 2025, targeting a broad band of broad mix of consumer goods like cleaning, cosmetics, cookware, with a full ban by 2032, unless it is CUU. So it is actually currently unavoidable use, which refers to the situation where the use of PFAS is considered essential for health, safety, or the functioning of society, and there is no reasonably available alternates for those products. So I will just give you some example like PFAS used in medical devices, semiconductors, or firefighting foam. So where removing PFAS would cause a significant disruption to daily functions. Minnesota, it moves yearly, starting with the firefighting foams and food packaging in 2024, expanding to 11 product categories like cleaning products, cookware, cosmetics by 2025 under Amara's law. So here you can find the 11 product categories in the right hand side. So you can just go over the product categories. So the ban also extends to certain type of packaging which is associated with these products. There is no exemptions granted. So regardless of the limited availability of the PFAS-free alternatives, the ban remains in effect. Next slide. So this timeline highlights how Rhode Island and Vermont are phasing in PFAS bans across the product categories between 2024 to 2032. So Rhode Island, it initiates the bans on firefighting foam in 2025, expanding to textiles, cookware, and personal care items by 2027, and artificial turf and outdoor apparel by 2029. Vermont begins in 2026 with a wide array of consumer goods, including juvenile products, cookware, textiles, followed by turf and apparel restrictions in 2027. And by 2032, Vermont is expected to add more product categories, signaling a very long-term regulatory commitment. Next slide. So let's see the PFAS regulatory updates in New Mexico and Canada. So I'll just begin with New Mexico, where PFAS regulations are evolving at the state level. So initial actions included contamination investigations at military sites and state-wide environmental monitoring. So in 2025, House Bill 212 enacts a ban on intentionally added PFAS in consumer products, which is a pivotal step towards the consumer safety. And by 2027, reporting obligations kick in and product bans expanded to high priority categories like textiles, cosmetics, and feminine hygiene items, etc. And by 2032, the law tightens further. So all non-exempt PFAS containing products will be prohibited unless they are officially classified as currently unavoidable use, which we have seen in the previous slide. And moving on to Canada, so which has been regulating the PFAS under the Canadian Environmental Protection Act (CEPA) since the mid 2000s. So first, let's see, like PFOS was first added to Schedule 1, Part 1 in 2006. So by 2013, PFOA and long chain PFAS were added for pollution prevention initiatives. And in 2022, the Canada proposed a prohibitions targeting PFAS in firefighting foams under prohibition of certain toxic substance regulations. And most recently, CEPA Section 71 mandates detailed PFAS reporting from manufacturers and importers. So January 29, 2025 is the reporting deadline, and March 5, 2025 marks the publication of final state of PFAS report. So this progression signals the Canada's shift from targeted bans to a broader national management strategy. This slide, like European Union and its member states PFAS regulation and deadlines. So you can find two images here. So this the first one outlines the EU's comprehensive approach to regulating PFAS across the four major policy areas. So under the Stockholm Convention and POPs regulation, PFOS, PFOA, and PFHXS are already banned with the limited exemptions. The next one is the REACH regulation. So it identifies the PFAS as a substance of very high concern, supporting ongoing restriction proposals covering thousands of compounds, which can be covered in the upcoming slides. The next one is the Drinking Water Directive. So it mandates the PFAS group limits, ensuring a safer public water supplies across the member states. And the next one is a regulation on maximum levels for certain contaminants in food, which now limit PFAS levels in eggs, fish, meat, and other staples to reduce the long-term exposure. So the final one is a packaging and packaging waste regulation, which targets the PFAS in packaging, which is a part of the EU's broader waste management strategy. So we can find the detailed explanation in the upcoming slides. So the next image, which is the emerging PFAS policy trends in the EU. So these are the four pivotal developments which are shaping the EU's evolving PFAS regulatory agenda in the year 2025. So the proposed generic restriction under REACH, which targets over 10,000 PFAS compounds, facing a strong pushback from the industry due to its scope. And the second one is a parallel initiative seeks to ban PFAS in the consumer goods like cosmetics and cookware with exemption for essential uses. And the next is draft water policies, which are tightening the PFAS standards in the both groundwater and surface water across the member states. And at the national level, France is elevating the PFAS legislation with a 2025 parliamentary debate, which is set to prioritize the pollution reduction. So this slide, which provides an overview of the major regulations, and the following slides will be detailed. It will detail the specific prohibition and compliance milestone. So here you can find how are PFAS restricted under REACH regulation. So the REACH proposal jointly submitted by 5 major EU countries, Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Netherlands. So which aims to ban around 10,000 PFAS, which represents the most sweeping chemical restriction in the EU history. So the administration flow, which includes the dossier submissions to ECHA, public consultation, expert committee review, and final legislation by the EU Commission. So if adopted, the regulation could take effect as early as 2026 or 2027, with a broad implications for manufacturers, importers, and the downstream users. So there are 2 regulatory pathways which are proposed: a full ban with an 18-month transition period, or a ban with derogations granting 5 or 12-year exemptions for essential uses. So once it is finalized, the restriction will apply uniformly across all member states. Next slide. So here we can find how PFAS restricted under Stockholm Convention. The growing global alignment on PFAS control involving 182 participating countries, which includes Canada, Japan, Australia, and the EU. So currently, the parties are prohibited from importing or exporting the banned PFAS without prior authorization, and from introducing a new PFAS containing products to market. So in addition, regulated entities must ensure environmentally sound disposal and report any exempted uses to international authorities. And upcoming evaluations through 2025 will review additional PFAS groups like PFNA, PFHXA, PFTRA, and long chain PFCAs for potential global restrictions under the Stockholm Convention. So the second image, so this timeline actually shows how 3 major PFAS, PFOS, PFOA, and PFHXS are progressively being phased out globally under the Stockholm Convention. So first, let's see one by one. PFOS was listed in Annex B restricted list in 2009, with the most exemptions set to expire by 2026. Then PFOA, which is added to Annex A elimination list in 2019, with the exemption currently under review. And PFHXS, the latest addition, it was added to Annex A in 2022, requiring the countries to finalize the implementation plan by 2024. So this sequence reflects the increasing international alignment on eliminating the persistent PFAS from industrial and consumer use. Next slide. Here this table actually compares the REACH and POPs regulation for key PFAS like PFOA, PFOS, PFHXS and C9 to C14 PFCAs. So here we have highlighted where each substance is restricted, banned or under proposal along with typical use sectors such as textiles, fire foams and semiconductors. So this actually helps identify the regulatory overlaps and gaps that may impact the supply chain compliance. So you can refer to this table later on as and when it is needed. Next slide. So here I have covered the majority of EU regulations. So we can go one by one. The first one is the Drinking Water Directive. This table summarizes the key thresholds and obligations under the EU's Drinking Water Directive for PFAS. So there are two parametric values which applies. A sum of 20 specific PFAS must not exceed 0.1 microgram per liter, while the total PFAS concentration, including the precursors, must remain below 0.5 microgram per liter. And technical guidelines for compliance issued by August 2024 with the monitoring obligations becoming enforceable by January 2026. So the next regulation is the food regulation. This summarizes a regulation which sets maximum maximum levels for specific PFAS, which is PFOS, PFOA, PFNA, and PFHXS in key food categories. So this threshold aims to protect the consumers based on the EFSA's scientific opinion. So EFSA is a food framework, which established tolerable weekly intake of 4.4 nanogram per kg body weight. And the regulation applies to a broad range of foodstuffs, including the fish, eggs, meat, and offal, which is the organs of the animals, where PFAS bioaccumulation is most likely. And the regulation has been enforceable since January 2023, marking a proactive step in limiting long-term dietary exposure to PFAS. So next is packaging regulation. So this regulation adapted in December 2024 and entering into force by August 2026, which introduces a harmonized packaging rules across the EU. And their goals are very clear, to reduce the packaging waste, boost recyclability, and also to promote the circular economy. So PFAS specific thresholds are introduced for food contact packaging, which is 25 ppb per individual PFAS and 250 ppb total PFAS limit, including the precursors. So additional requirements, which includes the design for recyclability, minimum recycled content, and clear labeling obligations, and restrictions on heavy metals like lead, cadmium, mercury, hexavalent chromium, which remains at 100 ppm, so which is implemented earlier. And the next one is PFAS updates on classification, labeling, and packaging regulation. So this actually outlines the current regulatory activity for several PFAS related substances in the EU. PFHXA and its related substances are undergoing a harmonized classification through the Risk Assessment Committee, RAC, a step toward restriction. And 6:2 FTOH, which is a commonly used fluorotelomere alcohol, so is under evaluation for harmonized classification due to its persistence and potential toxicity. And fluorinated gases are being reassessed as a part of the broader PFAS group review. And finally, SEAC will assess the PFAS use in medical and electronic sectors by June 2025 to determine if derogations are warranted. Next slide. So here we can find the PFAS in consumer product ban. So this visual outlines the proposed REACH restriction on intentionally added PFAS in a wide range of consumer products like textiles, cosmetics, footwear, cleaning agents. And it's a part of the universal PFAS restriction submitted in 2023, which is aiming to phase out approximately 10,000 PFAS, so which we have already discussed in the previous slide. And so adoption is expected in late 2026 with an 18-month transition period and time-limited derogation, which is 5 to 12 years for essential uses like medical devices or green tech components. So this proposal represents a major move toward minimizing the PFAS exposure through consumer-facing product regulation across the EU. So PFAS under the Industrial Emission Directive. So this directive outlines how PFAS emissions from industrial sectors are now subject to regulation under the revised IED as amended in 2024. Targeted industries include chrome plating, textile and paper processing, fluoropolymer production, and semiconductor manufacturing. And operators must meet new obligations, which include PFAS specific permit conditions and implement best available techniques and conduct periodic monitoring and reporting. And these updates must be transposed into a national law by early 2026, ensuring a uniform compliance across member states. And the control measures such as granular activated carbon, ion exchange resins, membrane filtration, so they are recommended to reduce the PFAS discharge effectively. The next directive is the PFAS under Waste Framework Directive. So it outlines how the EU Waste Framework Directive now incorporates PFAS management as a part of its 2024 revision under the Green Deal. And it applies to PFAS present in waste streams such as industrial sludge, contaminated soil, landfill leachate, and incineration residues. And even landfill leachate from non-hazardous waste is now subject to PFAS monitoring requirements. And member states are required to transpose these provisions into a national law by mid of 2025, though enforcement timelines may vary. And the last one is the essential use concept for PFAS. So this framework limits PFAS use strictly to applications that are vital for health, safety, or critical societal functioning. So this concept basically it is originated under the Montreal Protocol, and it defines 3 use categories such as non-essential uses, substitutable uses, and essential uses. So non-essential uses like cosmetics and skywax, which can be eliminated immediately, and substitutable uses like firefighting foams where the safer alternative exists, and essential uses such as medical devices and personal protective equipments where there is no alternatives available. Next slide. So this slide it outlines the leadership roles and national actions which is taken by 7 EU member states in advancing the PFAS regulation. So first let's see about Germany. So Germany plays a leading role in shaping the PFAS policy at the EU level, and it co-leads the REACH restriction proposals, one of the largest regulatory efforts. So as we have seen, like it targets over 10,000 PFAS compounds. And domestically, Germany has launched the PFAS-free procurement initiatives and industrial substitution programs, which supports the safer alternatives across the sectors. And in drinking water, Germany enforces 2 PFAS parametric values, which is 0.1 microgram per liter limit for 20 PFAS substances, which is effective since June 2023, and a stricter 0.02 microgram per liter limit for PFHXS, PFOS, PFOA, and PFNA, which is starting in 2028. So this reflects Germany's dual strategy, EU-wide leadership combined with the national level implementation of protective threshold. So moving on to France. France is proposing a national ban on PFAS in consumer products effective from January 2026, targeting a widespread exposure through everyday goods. And industrial sites under the ICPE framework. ICP is actually the French regulatory term that refers to the industrial or agricultural facilities. So that discharges 100 grams or more of PFAS per year will face an environmental tax of 100 euros per 100 grams. So additionally, these facilities must eliminate aqueous PFAS discharges within a 5-year period, driving long-term pollution control at the source. And we'll just move on to Denmark, Netherlands, and Austria. So Denmark was the first country to ban PFAS in food contact paper and board back in 2020, and continues national surveillance of PFAS levels in drinking water. And you can find the product ban and its effective date in the next slide. And the next one is the Netherlands. So Netherlands has been a strong advocate for the essential use concept and is also a co-author of 2023 EU-wide PFAS restriction proposal under REACH. And Austria, which supports a coordinated EU-level ban and is conducting a PFAS monitoring across groundwater and waste streams to track environmental exposure. So let's move on to Sweden and Belgium. So it compares how Sweden, here you can find how Sweden and Belgium are implementing national PFAS drinking water limits in response to growing EU and global concern. So Sweden, co-author of REACH PFAS restriction proposal, is established actually national guideline values under LIVSFS 2022:12. So it is actually a Swedish regulation issued by the Swedish Food Agency. So it is effective from 1st January 2023, and the PFAS 4 group covering substance like PFOA and 6:2 FTS is limited to 100 nanogram per liter. And the final one is the Belgium. So it is alignment with the EU Drinking Water Directive. So it's implementing a threshold of 0.1 microgram per liter for the sum of 20 PFAS and 0.5 microgram per liter for the total PFAS concentrations applicable by 12th January 2026. Next slide. So here, this table actually provides a comparative snapshot of national level PFAS bans and planned restriction across several EU member states. So France will implement a consumer product ban from 2026 and targeting items like cosmetics, sky wax, textiles, and packaging. And Denmark's upcoming 2026 ban, which focuses on clothing, footwear, and waterproofing agents with exemption for PPE, medical device, and recycled goods. And Germany is preparing for sweeping bans under the EU's REACH proposal, including the firefighting foams and common consumer articles. And the Netherlands is supporting the EU-wide ban and conducting a national PFAS monitoring in both consumer product and environmental media. And moving on to Sweden, it is encouraging the voluntary phase outs, particularly in textiles and cosmetics, supported by product labeling guidance. And Belgium is progressing toward a national ban covering firefighting foam, food contact packaging, and other consumer goods. And Austria is targeting PFHXA and related substances with the draft national legislation aligned to the broader REACH restriction. Next slide. So here, this table actually summarizes the current PFAS regulatory action across the Asia Pacific countries, reflecting varied levels of policy maturity and enforcement. So first, let's see Japan. Japan is leading with a full ban of 138 PFAS substances under its CSCL, which is Chemical Substances Control Law, coming into effect from January 10, 2025. And next is South Korea and Taiwan are advancing regulatory frameworks with a draft standards and monitoring system, particularly for effluents and tap water in high-risk sectors. And China controls the PFOS and PFOA through its toxic chemical inventory, focusing primarily on import-export regulations. And India, which aligns with the Stockholm Convention, banning PFOS and PFOA, but implementation remains partial with limited monitoring in selected industries. And coming to Singapore and Thailand, they are enforcing a surveillance and industrial controls, though binding thresholds are still emerging. So you can find the updates here, and even the right hand side map, you can find the frameworks for which is implemented, which has implemented these bans. So yeah, so that brings up to the end of the webinar. So you can find here, like, definitely a shift is needed from reactive responses to proactive prevention in PFAS policy and management. So the left pointing arrow, which is labeled reactive, it reflects the past, responding to the contamination incidents, litigation, and public health crisis after the damage is done. So in contrast, the right pointing proactive arrow, which symbolizes a forward-looking measures such as substance group bans, essential use frameworks, early warning monitoring, and substitution strategies. So this shift aligns with the recent developments like EU-wide restriction under REACH, food and water PFAS limits, and waste classification updates, and national bans targeting the consumer products. So proactivity means the anticipating, regulatory trends, engaging suppliers earlier, like which we have discussed in the complaints roadmap, and investing in alternative before complaints becomes mandatory. So ultimately, shifting rightward on this graphic is not just regulatory; it's a strategic, protecting the human health, the environment, and the long-term business resilience. So before we wrap up, I'd like to point to some helpful reference links provided on this slide. So these include official sources, regulatory documents, and scientific studies that support the data and insights which is shared today. So feel free to explore them at your convenience for a deeper understanding or to stay updated. Next slide, you can find we have included all the next slide, please. So we have included a glossary of key terms used throughout the presentation. So this will be useful if you are new to the topic, or if you want to clarify specific technical terms like CERCLA, STWA, etc. So you can refer to this section anytime for a quick definition. Next slide. So I'd be happy to take any questions you may have, and please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we'll definitely make sure to follow up with the answers after this session. And I think it's and thank you all for your time and attention today, and your engagement is truly appreciated. So I hope this session has been informative and valuable. And next slide. So you can please don't hesitate to reach out to the complaints@engineering.com. So if you need any further information or clarification, you can just reach out to the mail ID. Thank you so much. Have a great day.